That's right, Barracuda content and more abound on the Smite Pro YouTube channel, though, I mean, we all go for Barracuda, but then you stay for all of the extra content that youtube.com/SmitePro has, and there's a whole lot of it. We got the sit-downs, the round tables, the 1v1s, all the team check-ins, those sorts of fun things, all available for you at youtube.com/SmitePro. That's how you do an ad read, and I've taught my friend Mifflin here, who's with me for our second set of the day, but for our broadcast third set of the day. We're over here in North America, Miff, for some more fun action.
You're saying my ad read earlier for Smite Pro wasn't as good as yours?
No, it was great.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's how you do an ad read Dolson style.
I see. All right. The Dolson style was in parentheses understood.
Understood.
Okay.
Right. It was left out, but it was entirely intended. Miff, we're over here in North America. We already saw 1 3-game set. We've seen, let me rephrase, 2 3-game sets already today, 1 already in NA. And we've got another matchup, and J-Mac has kind of referenced this, between the Sturdy Artisans and the Herculean Hoofs. They're neck and neck in the standings. Would not be surprised if this one goes long as well.
No, I'm expecting it. I mean, these guys are very close competitors in the standing. Exact same win-loss. I mean, they've been back and forth throughout the year as well. Both of these squads have a ton of talent on them. Worth noting, though, the Artisans, with Stewart moving up to the SPL, now has Griff in the ADC slot. That's fun. I mean, I'm really excited for that. We actually got to feature Griff very recently in this month in Smite.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was for?
He got bodied.
Perfect. You're welcome, Griff. You're welcome. You can get those videos at youtube.com/SmitePro.
Smite game for this.
Oh, Smite game for this month in Smite. You're absolutely right. We've got a whole lot of content. Here are your standings in NA that have been updated from our first set. But Herculean Hoofs versus Sturdy Artisans have played 6 games each. And they are all tied up, so this one very important. Winter Dogs, they've distanced themselves a little bit. One of these teams is going to keep pace -1 game with the Winter Dogs. Could it be the Sturdy Artisans, Miff? And that's a question that now carries a little extra weight, I think. Relentless One, Sino, Pagon, Ionic, they've been with this team. Stewart up to the SPL, and now Griff fills in against a very difficult team to beat in the Herculean Hoofs. So what do you see here in this team? The guys around Griff are going to have to step up.
Yeah, anytime you've got a new player to the team, you got to expect that the first week or so, maybe the first couple performances, an actual competitive play are going to be a little bit shaky as they kind of find their feet under them, as they figure out how the team actually operates on game day. So I think you're absolutely right in saying that Ionic, Pagon, Sino, and Relentless One are going to need to step up here while Griff kind of gets into the groove of things. But that said, Griff is no stranger to competitive play. He's played for a very long time inside of Smite, has a storied career here. So I expect great things from him, but he's definitely got his work cut out for him. Worth noting that he's going to be up against Snoopy on the other side. That's Evan Man Jones, and that guy's pretty sick.
I heard he's streaming tonight, right?
Yeah, he is.
That's right, you replied to that. Right, to you specifically. This is a fun replay, fun highlight from Oswald. I remember this one. At the peak of the Hell meta, the Sturdy Artisans team did not shy away from locking in what I assume was very frustrating for the average Joes to play against in the Hell, but very fun for us to watch. On the other side, though, Miff, of the Sturdy Artisans, very competent team. They're 4-2 in a very, very competitive region here in North American SCC. Herculean Hoofs, you can say a lot of the same things about this squad. It's Meerkat, Mast, Baskin, Snoopy, and Gino. And admittedly, when you hear this roster, you're surprised that this is not the team that's up top at 6-1, 7-0, whatever it might be, undefeated. But I think that kind of shows where a lot of the talent lies here in North America, and that this team still fighting chance for that first seed spot.
Yeah, back in the day, this was Baskin and the boys, and throughout the entirety of Season 7, I think they were undefeated for a couple of phases straight in the North American SCC. Now, as talent's kind of stacked up here, as everyone's got a little bit more competitive, they are towards the top of the pack still, but tied with this squad they're playing up against today. I am excited to watch them, similarly as I'm excited to watch anytime Woony Kim loads into a battleground, right? That's Baskin, by the way, for you fans at home. I expect great things from this squad, but the one thing that you can always expect from this team is early game aggression, be it a early gank in the duo lane, be it Baskin just rotating out at level 4 because that's what Baskin does. I think that it's going to be a very contentious high aggression set.
I know Aggro is a staunch defender of the Baskin is the best player to have ever touched Smite standpoint, and I think there's definitely what's the word? That's a defensible position. Mm-hmm. Are you of that position, Miff? We're getting real hard hitting here for a fun set.
Look,
You're absolutely, and I'll give you some time to think about it as picks and bans for game 1 kickoff here. You can absolutely say, I don't know. I'll give you a bailout. You don't have to say yes, but I am curious if you do have a horse in this race.
Look, I love digging my own grave, Dave. That's something that you should learn or should know about me by now. So I'm going to go ahead and go into it. I think when you evaluate the best player to have ever done it, there's 3 criteria that you can go by.
Sorry.
It's how dominant were they in their phase of the game. So back in Season 1, Dagars comes to mind as this guy who kind of revolutionizes the jungle and how it's played. So you got to kind of give him a little bit of credence. If you're talking about mechanical play on field, got to bring up Paul on what he's been able to do in recent years. I think he might have my moniker for the most mechanically talented player to have done it. Or you just talk about, okay, well, is this guy try-harding? Is he not trying very hard and still performing? And that's where Baskin finds himself, I think. It is very true that Smite fans at home and other pro players across the world need to count their blessings that Baskin has priorities that aren't Smite particularly. If he wasn't in school going hard for his degree, I think that aggro would have a firmer stance to stand on. But as it stands right now, mechanical play, probably going to give it to Paul still.
I don't think you dug your own grave there at all, man. I think you made 3 very good. Actually, that was I was not expecting that at all.
I think about this a lot.
You do. I lay in bed and wonder who the best player of all time might be. Let's catch back up with picks and bans here for game number 1. Always when you're going up against this Sturdy Artisans team, you have to be prepared that Sino is going to play something interesting, unique, in all likelihood out of the jungle. The E-set absolutely fills that category. Outside of the E-set ban, though, Miff, and now maybe the Hou-Yi, nothing really jumps out at me. I'd say standard for both these teams. Hou-Yi may be a little bit interesting.
Yeah, Hou-Yi is something that really it's Panicat locking in at the SPL level, and besides that, not too many other people. But a very versatile pick, has a lot of aggression.
It's a lot of healing.
Yeah, that is a lot of healing. Already the Artisans coming away with a draft that is something I would choose not to play against. If I'm in a ranked lobby and that's what's locked in the top 3 on the opposite side, I'm heavily considering...
The power cord may unplug on accident.
Man, sometimes if Comcast starts acting up,
right,
so that's what I'm saying.
Right, your router needs to reset, something like that maybe. All right, so then when there's already this much healing stacked up, you have to ask, do we have good anti-heal applicators? People who apply anti-heal. Do we have that on our team? Between Tiamat, Fafnir sometimes builds Divine Ruin. Between Tiamat, Fafnir, and Hou-Yi, do you think there's good anti-heal application already for the Hoofs?
I think that as the Hunter builds stand right now, I've seen a couple of builds pretty popular in rank that incorporate Toxic Blade, Tainted Steel, so any Hunter should be able to apply some degree of anti-heal inside of their own right from their in-hand, so that's generally single target. So then you got to evaluate the supports. I don't really think Fafnir's the best at using Divine Ruin. Instead, maybe a Pestilence because he's able to sit in the back line so easily. Tiamat, on the other hand, is incredibly strong at applying Divine Ruin. She can pepper an entire team fight with that channeled first ability, and Cerberus with the inherent anti-heal and heal steal is going to be very strong into this draft.
And then a Camazotz as well for a little healing of the Herculean Hoofs' own. Brawler's Beat Stick absolutely could be an option here for the Herculean Hoofs. So healing's been the name of the game, or the name that we've given to the Sturdy Artisans draft here so far. Vamana will round out the draft. So outside of just the fact that they've got ridiculous healing, and now it gets even crazier with Vamana as the final pick, how does this team fight in your eyes? So we've said healing, and maybe healing is how they fight. But what's the win condition here for the Sturdy Artisans?
The Artisans are going to have to survive a couple of Onks, I'm assuming. I think the Hooves might be looking towards 1 or 2 cursed Onks. Burn through those, survive that fight, reset, use all this healing, and you've got an abundance of it on the side of the Artisans right now. Then that's where you really start to hit your stride.
Sturdy Artisans versus the Herculean Hooves. Anti-heal. Well, that might be the name of the game here in game number 1. 2 teams tied just behind first place of the standings here in North America. Basket on Tiamat, that sends a shiver down my spine, Miff. I'm not excited to be playing against that at all. A little bit different, though, in the builds already. As far as Hunters go, it has been short bow or bust, it feels like, over the last few weeks. The old lifesteal start, maybe, for Snoopy.
I am curious to see how Snoopy elects to build that out. I mean, Devo's Gauntlets
It's been Devo's usually, right?
Generally, it's
I
been
say
outclassed,
usually,
though.
but like
When you do go this in the first
Correct.
slot, it is generally Devourer's Gauntlets,
There you
but there have been times in the past where Bloodforge gets a look at it in the early game. I mean, specifically in Assault, but not really Conquest. But I am excited to see how this one pans out. Generally, when they go stacking items in the first slot, Hunters that is, it would be like a Death's Toll plus Transcendence or something along those lines. Call it the Taco build, is what Taco would call it, but I'm here, so I'm going to go ahead and call it the Death's Toll build.
oh, they're gonna call it the Mifflin build.
Yeah, it's the Mifflin. I came up with it.
There you go.
It's mine.
Oh, that's a good Riptide.
I'm curious, man.
Good Riptide from Ionic pulls Snoopy right back. Gino also down to half HP. Finally, level 2 will get reached by the Herculean Hoofs. A jump on in means some damage can get returned
Yeesh.
over back towards Ionic. Pagon low here in the mid lane, but Mast is as well. And now we get a chance to talk about this myth. Sino, you see the Vimana locked in. And in any other world, you're thinking that's solo lane for sure, but there's already an Ardio and a Yamoja picked. So that means Sino is going Vimana out of the jungle. Could be threatening, right? We've seen the build where you get hastened and frostbound and you just run them down in the back. Sino has potential here maybe in this one.
Yeah, maybe it's a dominance in that first slot as well for Sino, just
yeah.
getting a little bit more attack penetration from his basics. Sino couldn't fool me. This isn't the first time he's locked in the Vimana jungle. I mean, this is something that's been consistent throughout the years. He legitimately likes this pick. His Mast in some trouble.
Oh, the last bit of damage is not there. Sino saw an opening, he took it. And unfortunately, for the sturdy Artisans at least, Mast is able to survive. But that does open the door to this. That means Sino can now take away some of the back camps on the Herculean Hoof side of the map. Luckily for Mast, that speed buff is not up just yet. And you got a little sustain as this Camazotz. In the mid lane, though, Pagon still somewhat low from that earlier trade.
Bro.
Baskin jumps in. And Pagon wishes Baskin was studying for a test or something. Baskin's got first blood.
Luckily, Baskin did make a little bit of time inside of his schedule to load into this match for us and is putting on a show very early on. Pagon just not putting respect on that level 3 transition from Baskin. Gets availability towards that leap and immediately aggresses forward. I mean, that's clean play. Pagon going to have to put a little bit more respect inside of that lane. Hell has a ton of damage output in her own right, but that's still a Tiamat early on, and nice little stun from Meerkat to squash the aggression from Sino.
Yeah, it's hard enough to hit on one person, but you get it on two. That feels pretty good. Sino transitioned that pressure from the mid lane on over to the back camps, on over to the blue buff. So the sturdy Artisan's able to seal away the blue at least. And so Relentless one on this RDO. We saw earlier on today in EU Myth that this RDO pick was
Dominant.
just dominant, obnoxious to play against. Have to imagine in a lane up against a Cerberus, Relentless one should be feeling pretty comfortable.
Yeah, he's got similar tools, but Cerberus can match some of that sustain, steals some of that healing, can stun out the channeled abilities. I think it's a much better matchup than what we saw inside of the EU. Meerkat's in a much better position to be able to just kind of defend himself once he gets that next blue buff. I mean, losing out on the second rotation of blue is tough.
Pagon, tower dive. Mast is going to get out, though. Little healing out of the Camazotz. You would have loved to have that out of hell there. A couple swoops, and maybe Pagon is down by the end of things there, but yet to reach level 5. We're almost there, though. Great Riptide forces Snoopy into the old up and over, and so Yannick and Griff continue to put pressure here on the left side of the map. Rotation from Baskin and Mast. Sino's reached level 5, and so once that blink comes up in 5 seconds, gotta be wary of it. And my passing glance over at the actives myths that shows a Bracer of Radiance on one side of the supports and a nice sprint on the other.
Yeah, I'm surprised that we don't see an early Onk selection from the Herculean Hooves here. I mean, sure enough, you're not going to be taking a team fight too early in the game. Maybe that second relic slot will still benefit you pretty greatly, but considering how much sustain is on the side of the Artisans, you got to think that maybe the Hooves just pick up an Onk early on and can force some engagements and take some fights early on. Instead, it's generally standard, except for that Heavenly Sprint pickup that you are highlighting right now from Gino. I think that both squads do a pretty good job with their relic selection as of now. Snoopy just dropping some stuns inside of the lane, making sure that he is able to clear out the waves and not put himself in too much danger in a 1v2 situation. Both squads already been squabbling, I think is the best word to use here, as they fight over neutral territory, neutral camps, and as of right now, Herculean Hooves coming out slightly ahead from First Blood, but the Artisans right there.
Sino's here, and Snoopy does not have his ultimate. It's a Riptide to force Sino back, unfortunately. Not the direction he wanted to go, but it's a blink forward. Snoopy takes to the skies. Now Sino turns his eyes on back. He got to hit all three, and Griff hit a couple. but one shy of enough. Dash in from Gino's not going to be enough to steal away that purple buff, or yes it is, as Ionic is the one who takes it. And so at least a purple buff invade gone right. Sino being chased down by Gino, and Gino alone because Mast a bit further away in the jungle.
Gino looks like he might be trying to steal back a purple buff up against Sino, but that's easier said than done on Fafnir.
Mast is going to be here shortly as well. Griff will pick up his own purple buff. There's a Camazotz lurking just around the corner here. Griff does not have his ultimate, but does have enough mana for the roll. And so luckily this Rom will stay alive a little bit longer, and we wondered what Snoopy would go myth. Well, back in base he goes, and Devour's Gauntlet is picked up first.
So it's going to be a good infusion of power, decent lifesteal potential as well, matched up with the lifesteal that you're afforded by Cal. He's going to be sustaining a pretty fair deal inside of these fights. Maybe he goes towards this item early on just because he's worried about the dive potential of Sino, wants the ability to just 1v1 inside the backline. Likely going to be an Icavale in that next slot, or potentially even a Dominance if he's really going for just raw damage potential. I'm curious, man. This is a very interesting Hunter build. It's not one that you get to see too often, even in ranked. I mean, at high-tier ranked play, it's generally still dominated by Icavale or Transcendence in that first slot.
Well, he felt left out of the healing conversation, I have to imagine. Where Griff is going to be getting all of this healing, Snoopy wants a little bit as well, so maybe Devour's Gauntlet helps him out in that category just a little bit. Feels better, of course, once it's fully stacked up, so we'll see how long that takes for Snoopy, and how the Sturdy Artisans and the Hoofs, respectively, decide to play around that. It is Dominance for Sino, first item there. We've seen this Vamana already get aggressive with that blink, dive onto a target. Unfortunately, has not manifested it in any kills yet for the Sturdy Artisans. But depending on how this this build goes here for Sino, Myth, that walk into the backline and delete a carry while you're in your ultimate, the threat of that could be increasing.
Yeah, he's got some options on how to build. Could go towards some utility movement speed or potentially some utility HP like a Blackthorn Hammer. Keep your eyes on it.
Ionic uses the River's Rebuke here. Sino on the other side of this
Great
fight now.
bounce.
Soupy has gone up and he crashes right back down next to Sino, who's chasing him underneath the tier 1 tower. One last auto will get it, but instead Pagon is the one who delivers the killing blow. A couple snipes up from the sky from Griff, who crashes back down to earth, but Baskin's rotated in from mid. And there's a feast in the left side, and everyone's eating from both teams. Sino now jumped on it. All it's going to take is a little more damage from Baskin, a little bit more damage from Gino, but Griff has answered back here as well. Can Baskin win the 2v1 against some low-health targets? I don't know, man. It's looking iffy, but he's got one. Now he just needs a cooldown for the second.
Does use the jump away. Maybe thought that was going to finish off the kill, but not quite. Ionic able to survive this one, but a 3-0-1 Tiamat 8 minutes into a game. That's a pretty strong start. 1 level lead over Pagon. I mean, Baskin, sure, could have got one more kill, but I don't think he's feeling too bad about how that one pans out. And worth noting, that Heavenly Sprint was something I was curious about getting picked up so early on. We got to see why it was picked up right there. Heavenly Sprint popped onto Snoopy off the tail end of his own leap, immediately disengages himself from the Vamana. I mean, if Sino's strategy is to press 4 and then run down a carry, pretty hard to do if they run faster than you.
And so that's maybe, look, you'd like that to be cleaner, right? If you're the Herculean Hooves, you'd like to not trade out a couple of kills onto the Sturdy Artisans. But ultimately, what you probably come out of that feeling great if you're Baskin and the Hooves in general. I mean, you're waiting for this team out to get a little bit later on into the game before that damage and those kills start to roll through. And now we're 3-0, like 8 minutes in. I mean, that's near best case scenario you imagined at the start of this game.
No, that's a great start. There's a reason this team was called Baskin and the Boys for like an entire year,
That's right.
by the way. So now that Baskin is off to a good start, I'm sure the
Is
boys
that a downgrade
themselves
in team name?
are feeling pretty good. Yeah, I'd say so. I like Baskin and the Boys more.
Baskin got demoted?
Yeah, now he's just a hoof.
Yeah, now he's just one of 5 Hoofs.
No, one of 5 hoofs.
Hoofs.
Yeah.
Oh, right, they're all a hoof.
Yeah.
That's what all right, never mind.
The plural is hoofs.
Right, but they're not part of the same, like, creature.
Well, they might be.
I guess
Well,
they
the
could be.
creature is the Herculean Hoofs, and he is a hoof.
Got it, right. It's 5 Hoofs standing there.
No, it's 5 hoofs.
All right.
You keep saying hooves. What is that?
That's my way of pronouncing it.
Yeah, but it's an F.
Miff, we've already established I don't read. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Nice.
Herculean Hooves. I did it again. Herculean Hoofs. Off to a great start here. Baskin 3-0-1, 1 level ahead of Pagon out of the mid lane, who did pick up a kill and an assist on the rotation over earlier on. 2 Morb is the start. And then an interesting item pickup here, Myth. Winged Blade will be the second item option for Pagon.
Yeah, just wants a little bit more survivability, the ability to maneuver around these team fights as well. Between Doom Orb and Winged Blade and the movement speed stem that he gets from his third ability in the light stance, this hell is going to be very slippery inside of these fights. And if it's Baskin's job to close gap, he's going to have a hard time. If it's Mask's job to close gap, he's going to have an incredibly hard time as well. And maybe not just because of the build, but also because of the fact that he's slightly behind Cyno in the jungle.
And Cyno's just been doing this on cooldown, dashing in, but with the build the way it is, somewhat squishy. Meerkat locked in with all of the Sturdy Artisans, and now it's Baskin, a man on a killing spree, trying to kite away from the Sturdy Artisans, and the Artisans able to even up the kills, maybe get some gold back here with the Pyro.
Yeah, that's going to put them in the lead if they pick up this Pyromancer. Nobody from the Hoofs looking to start their rotation over on this right-hand side, having lost Meerkat with no ultimate available for Baskin. Yeah, okay, we'll just go ahead and reset this one. Sturdy Artisans come out ahead inside of that engagement, but it's just 400 gold. It's just 1,000 experience 10 minutes in. Not the biggest deal as of right now. I'm keeping my eye on the Gold Fury. Whichever team picks that one up first, that's the go button for the rest of the game. Then they can start to push their leads throughout. But as it stands right now, Baskin, despite falling a little bit behind with the rest of his team, is still ahead in experience nearly 2 levels over Pagon.
Oh, Yannick needed that Riptide to be good, needed the second one to be good as well, and they both were. Still a stun on the other side. That kept things interesting, but Yannick will waltz on away from that dive in there in the mid.
Did you see that damage from Baskin right there?
Oh,
just firmly into Pagon.
Firmly grasp it, and this is my. Now I can segue into this question, because you're kind of in two different spots here, where Baskin's got all of the kills on your team, and everyone else has kind of dipped their toes into the assist pool, whereas on the Sturdy Artisans, it's all evenly spread onto everyone but Yannick. In your experience, have you preferred one over the other, all your kills on one guy versus everyone having a horse in the race, having a hoof in the race?
Oh, nice. That's clean. Competitively, it depends on who the kills are landing on. If it's going onto a hyper carry like Baskin, I'm probably okay with it as long as we think that he's going to be able to utilize that lead. And on a god like Tiamat, getting him into the late game sooner is always going to be better. But I have been in like a competitive match or two where I've like in the jungle, I'm sitting with like 6 assists, and I'm like, can I just get like 1 kill, please?
Right, but you're thinking about yourself in those moments. You want a kill for Myth.
No, because like Myth's going to carry is what Myth was thinking.
Got it. Did you more times than not?
No, I only ever won one thing.
But it was a world championship, so that does feel pretty good. So we're happy about that for Myth. Sturdy Artisans regroup here. They're grouping around this Gold Fury. And so, kind of similar to that question, then the name of the game becomes for the Sturdy Artisans, we got to kill Baskin, right? If all the kills and the leveling and the scaling's in one place, we got to kill Baskin. And right now it's Cyno,
damage,
who's trying to do it, but dominance into serrated edge does not give you a lot of confidence as far as health goes. Meerkat's around the back of Cyno here and could keep things interesting in the jungle. It's a chase down on the right, and it's a River's Rebuke on the left. Meerkat will burn Cyno down, and the Herculean Hoofs have found one.
Cyno just thought he was a little bit tankier than he actually was. Steps too far forward and loses out on the majority of his HP to Baskin. Meerkat on the rotation, able to finish off that kill, and now the Hoofs completely in control.
Meerkat jumps forward. Look at the health bar, or what was a health bar from Relentless One, and the re-dive in is quick. And it is swift. Snoopy's got a double. The Suns get one. The good old-fashioned auto attacks get the other. Herculean Hooves pull back a few big kills, and there is still a Gold Fury waiting on the back end, Myth.
Riff has the ultimate available still, so could look for a snipe steal, but easier said than done. No vision, no chance. He's just going to go ahead and try and clean up that red buff. Baskin, though, I don't think he's going to make it easy for him.
No, Baskin won't steal away the red. But it won't be secured. I guess Riff or Yannick didn't really want it. They can't get it, as Gino will send one final hammer their way. So that's a big swing now in this game for the Herculean Hooves. About 2,000 gold, 13 minutes in. Been a lot of kills bouncing back and forth, but now we really show, or that was a really good show. The first kind of full 5v5 Myth in a real great magnifying glass on how hard it's going to be to fight against this Herculean Hooves team when it's all spearheaded by this Tiamat that's pretty far ahead of its counterpart.
Yeah, I mean, that fight really does go south because of Cyno's positioning in the initial engagement. Just pops his forward, the Colossal Fury starts walking forward and walks headfirst into the entire kit of Baskin, who, as you already highlighted, has a pretty nice lead on this Tiamat. Good anti-heal thanks to the Divine Ruin, decent penetration from the Charon's coin. I mean, Cyno just can't do that. He just can't lose out on 60% of his HP from the initial. Instead, I think the Sturdy Artisans would be much better suited dragging out these engagements as long as possible. That is where healer compositions really do hit their stride. And as of right now, still no Ankh selection from the Hoofs means that they can utilize that inside of these team fights. But instead, it was a all-in engagement from the Rip, and they didn't win out on it.
Yeah, I mean, Meerkat's got Tainted Steel, Brawler's Beat Stick for Mast, Divine Ruin first for Baskin, Gino's got Contagion. Everyone's got something in the anti-heal department except for maybe Snoopy. Griff is going to need a whole lot more than healing
Good cleanse
to survive here. Walk away, Griff, walk away, but he's not able to do so. There's a stun. He'll shrug it off and do his best to escape here, but now has Mashed overextended. Will the snipes connect? 1 and 2
Nice
will, and 3 sets up Sino for now a return kill on this Vamana, and he's got to get out because Baskin has sent a volley of damage his way. The moment Tiamat rears her head around that corner, that's when the Sturdy Artisans scatter to the wind.
Those ult shots from Griff were incredibly clean. A phenomenal ultimate from Ionic separates that engagement and makes sure that Mask not only falls, but stops the rest of the Hoofs from being able to rotate in and try and peel out for him. That said, though, even with Mask dead, early grouping on the right-hand side maybe looks like they could take eyes towards this Pyromancer Snoopy spots that Griff does rotate back to his own lane, so is forced to head back to base. Is this Ho Yi to try and defend that Tier 1 tower? That opens up the door for the Artisans to do exactly what the Hoofs wanted to. Pyromancer pulled.
Pyromancer pulled, and Pyromancer down to half. Baskin, Gino, and Meerkat are close by. Snoopy heading to left, so I think that shows you that the Hoofs are not really concerned about the Sturdy Artisans starting up an FG here. But Griff is headed to the right side of the map, so that'll be a bit of a difference here if a fight does end up breaking out. The Artisans will have their ADC, and Snoopy is over on the left still. Pyromancer not finished off just yet. Ionic pulled on into the back, but then a Riptide actually sends a couple members of the Hoofs on the wrong side of the Pyromancer pit. Pyromancer gets secured by the Artisans, and there will be no fight. And Snoopy now maybe looking smart. He's able to take down the Draugr, get some pressure here on left.
Maybe if he's able to pick up that Tier 1 tower, that should mitigate the majority of what the Artisans were able to acquire from the Pyromancer itself. Putting that wave inside of the tower might be able to do it all on his own, head back to base, and be safe inside of these engagements. The Artisans are taking a much more calculated approach to these team fights now. Even around that Pyromancer, we didn't see an all-in engagement. Sino maintains his ultimate, doesn't even have to use that blink, or doesn't have the blink available, rather, to engage. So instead, it was a pretty far back engagement. Pull the Pyromancer, wait for the damage from Baskin, reset it, pull it again, utilize that healing, and continually keep pressure up on these neutral objectives, continually force the Hoofs to try and peek their head around that corner, see if that Pyromancer is actually happening. Sturdy Artisans utilizing the healing in their composition incredibly well up until this point, but now Gino, having ticked over to level 12, does have that Ankh available, and he upgraded it immediately.
Relentless One is here on the right. So the Sturdy Artisans will know that this Fire Giant has been started, and the Hoofs will know that it is known that they have started this Fire Giant. Relentless One dashes in, but it's an immediate stun and a flurry of damage from the Hoofs around the backside. Go the Sturdy Artisans. Relentless One will not survive the initial onslaught. It's another nice ultimate from Meerkat to lock down a couple members of the Artisans, but have the Artisans done too much? Sino left unchecked for the time being. Snoopy will not re-engage. Instead, he will leap on out, but now Baskin rounds the corner and send some damage Pagon and Ionic's way.
The rest of the Artisans now on the retreat do have some additional movement speed thanks to the heal stance from Pagon, but can they outrun the CC stuns from Gino? Mass blinks in, does not connect the bats.
Oh, but Griff is caught in a bit of an awkward spot. The Herculean Hoofs want to finish these kills. Baskin is so full of HP, you can tell that this Tiamat wants to get back in there, and maybe Gino is the avenue to get back in, but instead Gino has overstayed. Now Baskin jumps in already after Griff has gotten a kill, already after Pagon has gotten 2, and the Herculean Hooves overstay and they overdive.
Baskin uses the beads, wants to be able to turn this one around, might be able to find Griff. Nice! Aegis maintains his life. Credit for Baskin's head goes to Sino, and the Sturdy Artisans, textbook in their execution around that team fight. We've got healing, we've got kite. Let's use it. Let's run away and do exactly that. And what do the Herculean Hoofs do? This fight looks good. The Artisans are low HP. Chase it out. We've got the damage. A couple of missed CC abilities, a nice cleanse to make sure that Dragon Form from Gino doesn't get the stun. And immediately the Sturdy Artisans turn that fight on their head. Fire Giant burning fast.
It's low. Meerkat, I don't think has been spotted out here just yet. Relentless One, you can see where Relentless One's trying to body block things. So Meerkat has an avenue to get in. The Fire Giant being whittled lower and lower, and the sturdy Artisans will secure the FG, but Meerkat did make it interesting. That wasn't a quick FG, so the opportunity was there for Meerkat.
It was, but may have cost him his blue buff. No, able to defend that one. Relentless One not going to be able to pick that up, but what he does have is better than a blue buff. It's Fire Giant on 5 members, 19 minutes into this one. 3,000 gold lead as well for the Chaos team, and if you thought it was annoying fighting a healing composition like this in a defensive positioning around a neutral objective, imagine trying to deal with it on the siege. Not only are they going to be benefiting, the sturdy Artisans that is, from the HP sustain of Fire Giant, but also from Artio, the self-heal from Vamana, the team-wide heals from Hell, and Yamoja. Griff should have a little bit of sustain inside of his kit, thanks to the Cal as well. I mean, the Herculean Hoofs, they have to win out on the initial engagement. I'm thinking if this Ankh goes down, they have to win the fight while that effect is still active. If they don't, I don't see how they contend with this draft from the Artisans.
Yeah, a lot of it still revolves around Baskin. Top player damage in the game, 5,000 ahead of anyone else, 6,000 ahead of Pagon on the other side. That was a big KDA turnaround for Pagon in that previous engagement as well. A couple of kills, a couple of assists, Doomorb, and then Winged Blade maybe slows down the damage a little bit, but then Soul Reaver into the Lost Artifact after that. So now we'll see Pagon peaking right back up as far as that damage goes. Left side tier 1 looked at, left side tier 2 being looked at. A couple members of the Hoofs here, Miff, but if anything, maybe a soft defense and then head back to your Phoenix line.
Yeah, not enough of a grouping here from the Hoofs to actually stop this tier 2. Instead, I think you're right, they are keeping their eyes on the birds themselves, so we'll see how the Artisans elect to address that. Do they want to go ahead and utilize their lead in this time with Fire Giant to siege into a Phoenix, or would they rather go for a tier 2 tower? Seems like it's the Phoenix.
Whoa, Baskin jumped on by Sino. 2 of the 3 snipes connect, but that is enough to get Baskin out of this fight, and that's the initial engagement that you were mentioning is so important. Ionic a bit shy.
Still has
on the River's Rebuke. Ankh is still there for Gino. That'll be a big changing tide here in this fight. Gino jumps on in to the back. He'll transform as well. Big knockups from the Herculean Hooves. That'll slow down the sturdy Artisans.
Gino playing so intelligently with his Ankh. He is waiting for the all-in engagement from the sturdy Artisans before he pops that relic. That's the right way to approach it.
It might be happening right now, though. This Phoenix taking a whole lot of damage. Somehow Snoopy is the last one defending this left side Phoenix, and so the Phoenix will fall. Ankh gets used, and the Herculean Hooves press down on the gas pedal, and look at the jumps on in. Relentless One left alone in the back, and now it's about kiting backwards, and Pagon will do you one better. He'll pick up the kill. The Herculean Hooves grouped as 4, now retreating into their own base.
Sino's low on HP, but he doesn't need any. The rest of his team's healthy, and Snoopy in some trouble. Griff, credit for this one. 2 dead now in the Hoofs.
Miff, this is suddenly very dangerous. The sturdy Artisans have that sustain, but they don't have the minion wave yet. And so not feeling comfortable enough going for the end, despite Baskin and Snoopy both being down for at least 35 seconds. You could look towards mid-tier 2. You got 45 seconds left on your Fire Giant. Should be able to get a look at one more Phoenix.
Pagon able to sustain up the team here. Meerkat actually dashing in aggressive. If any CC was available to Sino, I think they could have very easily engaged on him, utilized that damage output from Griff. Instead, though, slow play, resustain, and then chase it out.
Meerkat playing with fire here. Jumps away. So 4 seconds on Baskin's respawn, 5 seconds on Snoopy's respawn. You'll be fully reinforced. But if you can get a kill here, if you're the sturdy Artisans, you'll stagger out the Herculean Hooves so effectively. But Mast, realizing that's not a big threat, he'll back away, and it looks like this push is done. But the sturdy Artisans did what they needed to do, Miff. They took down the left Phoenix, and that'll open things up around this FG.
They even exposed the mid Phoenix as well, so they've got a nice little goal to head towards if they are able to win out on a team fight around the Fire Giant in about exactly 1 minute when it respawns. Herculean Hoofs maintain the base, but that was a not very awe-inspiring defense. That did not instill a lot of confidence in me in their ability to keep this game rolling out. The sturdy Artisans draft is just annoying, man. It's just hard to deal with. Sino as this steadfast wall in the front line, Relentless One doing the exact same, just a consistent CC pillar, be it stuns or cripple fields for his team, and then that legitimate wave of healing coming from Yamoja and Hell. It is so hard to contend with. The Hoofs,
15,000 healing.
Look, they played well, too. They played well with that Ankh, waiting for that very last moment, for that real engage from the Artisans. But even then, the backwards kite potential, thanks to all this movement speed afforded by Pagon, was enough to keep the majority of the Artisans alive and buy them yet another engagement where they are favored inside of the fight. Hoofs, though, with
Ooh.
mass positioning here. I guess they are going to defend a Fire Giant.
Alternate timeline alert, Miff. Sound the alarm. Pagon's picked up alternate timeline. And so hopefully, normally we only get to see the meme like pickup where you sell and pick up alternate timeline on the enemy team's base as you're decimating them and winning the game. I don't know. Have we seen a big alternate timeline proc yet? I don't know if we've seen a big one. We've seen them get picked up here and there. I don't know if we've seen one that like changes the face of the game though yet.
There was Benny Q on the replay reel earlier but
right.
I think there was also a Paul play at playoffs where he actually got the value from it one time, but he was already incredibly far ahead at that point. Fire Giant pulled, though.
And maybe we'll get to see some value out of this alternate timeline. It's fun, regardless of whether or not we see big value out of it from Pagon or not. Maybe you can play a little bit more cavalier, get a little bit more aggressive, and that's what Pagon is doing here. But Sino runs down Snoopy, and Snoopy
there it is.
Left to the wind. Alternate timeline used, and Pagon's got a second lease at life, and Pagon will survive. The second dive in, it takes Meerkat and Gino jumping on in, but you've lost all your carries, and the Sturdy Artisans have not. It's a triple kill from Griff, and the Sturdy Artisans come up big.
It's just Meerkat left and alive inside of this one. So Sino, stop is back. The rest of the boys going to go ahead and barrel on down the lanes. Left side Phoenix going to be spawning up very soon here, so that could be where they head over to try and clear it out before they can
Wait,
put
did
up
Sino
a
not
defense.
use his ult a second ago?
No, he definitely, it's just
back up?
Yeah, it's just back.
No, Meerkat is going to have a whole lot of fun here running away from Sino. And by all accounts, Smith, although look at this. So there's 8 seconds on Snoopy, and it's just Griff and Relentless one, and then 10 seconds behind, and then 14 seconds behind.
I don't think they can do it.
Yeah, you might be looking at a Phoenix here, if anything. Seems like Snoopy's going to be enough to keep this game alive.
Yeah, just showing up, just spawning up in time to put up a defense. With that desynced death of
never got
Meerkat
FG.
for 40 entire seconds means that this Fire Giant likely is just going to be easy for the Sturdy Artisans now. They've got a massive gold lead, about 6,000. Fire Giant, a numbers advantage for the next 30 seconds. Relentless one already establishing defensive positioning, acting as goaltender for his team. Fire Giant's burning slow, though, and Gino's already in.
Gino is close by. But it's a Fafnir hammer. Far from the best objective secure mechanic there is in the game. So the Sturdy Artisan should not fumble this one away, but Gino has bought some time.
Mast is in.
Swooping back from base to Herculean Hoofs, steal it away. That's a massive swing now in this game as the Sturdy Artisans did most of the damage, and it's Ricochet from Snoopy to steal the FG away, but the Sturdy Artisans, they've got plenty of damage to run this one down. The Herculean Hoofs have maybe overextended. They'll lose 2 of those FG buffs.
It's so heart-rending for the Hoofs now because every time they come out ahead inside of a fight, steal the Fire Giant, they leave 1 or 2 members of the Artisans alive with 1/100th of their HP bar. Both Sino and Ionic were a stiff breeze from falling over at the tail end of that team fight, and take a peek at them again, their health is going up pretty quickly, isn't it? They're going to be full health by the time they start to knock on the door this tight.
Got to be Baskin, and Baskin's in a decent spot to get something done. He's found the back line of the Sturdy Artisans and sent some damage their way, keeping things interesting as Sino will run Baskin down. It's a big 1v1 on the right side that Baskin was coming out ahead of, but now he'll jump over the wall, and the double stun from Relentless one on the read. Baskin's gotten a kill, but it's immediately been traded out. Snoopy 5 seconds away, and that'll keep this Titan siege, if there is one, interesting.
Sino's going to have to spend a little bit of time healing back up. Again, worth noting, Sturdy Artisans are not with the Fire Giant right now. They don't have that additional sustain. Instead, just have to leave inside of this engagement. I mean, they can't fight in 4 versus 4 at this point, especially considering Gino still does benefit from the Fire Giant buff himself. Instead, the Artisan's very happy with removing the left side Phoenix, taking out the mid Phoenix, and now resetting towards the Primal Fury to push their gold lead even further ahead. But this has been a contentious game, Dave. I mean, back and forth battles on these base defenses, but the Hoofs have only really been able to do that, defend the base. They have not been too proactive on the map themselves. Still, 3 towers standing between the Hoofs and the exposed birds of the Sturdy Artisans, and only 2 towers standing for the Hoofs, one of them a tier 1 on that right-hand side. No Fire Giant, no problem, if you ask me. I want to see the Sturdy Artisans group up and start dealing with these towers.
I was going to ask if you think that Snoopy really keeps the game alive here. I mean, is having FG enough extra stats for the Sturdy Artisans to end the game?
100%.
And so Snoopy, maybe the saving grace now for the Herculean Hooves. Fire minions on the left being pushed out one final time, you imagine. Still some time left, though. Plenty of time, actually. 2.5 minutes, so In all likelihood, the left side Phoenix will be respawned by the time the next Fire Giant comes back up. So now it's about setting the stage if you're the Sturdy Artisans. Just trying to ward up, get some of that last bit of gold. But I don't disagree with you here, Miff. There's enough of a lead for the Sturdy Artisans where you maybe could push this advantage. But instead, we'll take our time.
Snoopy is also able to pick up the Draugr in this little interim between pushes here from both teams, and that's not nothing at this point of the game. Going to be a little bit harder to clear out that tier 2 tower, that Phoenix on the right-hand side. Left side Phoenix going to be spawning up very shortly here as well, and with the tier 1 having already fallen, that is defense is lost on the Titan, HP total pool lost on the Titan of the Herculean Hoofs. So instead of going for the additional tier 2 tower, instead the Sturdy Artisans are going to go for the slightly higher risk play, but much higher reward in that they're going to group up and try and push down this left side Phoenix while it is still weakened. Herculean Hoofs, though, they've been here before in the past, and they've been able to stop a couple of pushes. We'll see if they can pull out another one here.
Everyone in this game has their relics ready to go. So that's sometimes a changing factor, but it won't be this time. Mid lane is going to have some fire minions ushered in by Cyno. On this Vimana that has suddenly caught fire a little bit. Cyno was kept in check in large part in the early part of this game, but now a little bit of defense in their Toxic Blade, Talisman of Energy. Not that Toxic Blade is super defensive by any means, but helps with some anti-heal. Then Spectral Armor as well, so Snoopy with the Rage and the Wind Demon won't be doing as much. Baskin steps forward here to defend his left side Phoenix that does have the Draugr buff spinning around it. So that'll slow down the Sturdy Artisans. If you can get this Fire Giant, this left side Phoenix, that'll feel great for the Artisans, especially before the next FG.
Yeah, FG spawning in just under a minute now, as it's been falling off the belt of not Gino. So Sturdy Artisans in a neutral stance here. Neither team with the Fire Giant buff is going to have an advantage, but Sturdy Artisans have a ton of healing, and that might be one of the most important facets of a Fire Giant. Don't really need that HP 5 when you've got 4 legitimate healers on your team. They can take this fight for as long as the Herculean Hoofs are willing to give it to them, but the longer they take to move into this Phoenix, the more HP it has.
Relentless One wants to fight. It's a blink into the back, and Baskin is the perfect target. Aegis and beads used by the Tiamat. Grip up in the sky will hit one of the 3 snipes, but Baskin's got to be careful on the re-engage here. Some damage connects onto the Sturdy Artisans. They will not fully commit on the disengage yet. Instead, they return fire to the left side Phoenix.
All Phoenix is up, and Mass able to keep it alive here, but maybe not his teammate. Snoopy in some trouble. Snoopy
jumps away. Snoopy does not have actives. Baskin does not have the actives, but he's got the damage. And Relentless One is the first casualty here. This is a Phoenix siege gone wrong outside of getting the actual Phoenix for the Sturdy Artisans, unless they have the ability to fight back in. Baskin avoids the last bit of damage from Griff. And Griff now has all eyes turned towards him.
Snoopy with a dive in, able to finish off that kill, and now Ionic on the retreat. No Omi available, but he's not the target. The rest of the Hoofs are looking towards the core 2 members of the Sturdy Artisans. Yeah, no way they can keep up that chase, that heal from Pagon. Again, giving you just so much movement speed. Both Phoenixes fall, and yet again, the Sturdy Artisans are stopped on their Titan siege. But that's all the Hoofs are going to get off that. I don't think they can step up to the Fire Giant. They're not stripping any tier 2 towers here. The Herculean Hoofs are fighting for their lives, and that's it. They're not fighting for the win. They are fighting to survive.
And survive once more, they'll need to. Around this enhanced Fire Giant, a lot of actives are down going into this fight. A lot of them stripped away, but the Herculean Hoofs, they've got maybe 30 seconds of a 5v4 now before Griff respawns and comes back into this fight, and that's all the opening the Herculean Hoofs are looking for. Cyno transforms here. He's looking towards Baskin, who does not have beads, who does not have Aegis. Cyno just out of range of the last bit of damage. Cyno will not finish the kill, but Snoopy sure will. The enhanced Fire Giant awaits around the corner. Is there a steal to be had? Ionic won't get it instead. The enhanced Fire Giant dropped entirely by the Herculean Hooves. Snoopy has got a double kill. Alternate timeline, I don't know, maybe makes things interesting, but it sure doesn't. At the end of the day here, Snoopy's got 3, and the Herculean Hooves got to win in game 1.
Triple kill for Snoopy, but there's still 3 towers standing. The base has to contend with these fire minions. Baskin's there, but he's a large part of the DPS on the Titan. Griff, as the hunter, it may be the best suited to put up a defense 1 versus 4, but he is certainly not favored.
Gotta be a win here for the Herculean Hooves. You've got everyone that wants to be here. Baskin will be barreling down the mid lane. You're going to need a miracle here if you're Griff, and the Herculean Hooves have already gotten a miracle of their own in this game. Griff up to the skies. You'll send some damage down Snoopy's way. But there's still plenty of damage for the Herculean Hoofs to end things here in Game 1. You win this game 2 kills down and ultimately 1,000 gold down, but it was a lot worse than that earlier on.
What a crazy sequence of moves there to put themselves in a position where they could win the game. I called it. I didn't think they'd be able to go towards the Fire Giant, but instead they take that power play and they take the fight very quickly afterwards. Cyno dives just a little bit too deep trying to finish off that kill on a Baskin. Had he killed Baskin, that crushes the aggression. There's no chance they can look towards the Fire Giant or the team fight afterward, even if Cyno trades out his life. But instead, the Herculean Hoofs, they're a very good team. That's the only way you can say it. They are an incredibly talented team to keep their mental in check and stick around inside that engagement. Props to them, man. I'd have sixth.
Agreed. When Sturdy Artisans are playing the way they were, it just felt like everyone was being run down, except for Baskin. Kind of everyone for the Sturdy Artisans was feeling good. And then that Phoenix defense kind of changes everything. And it wasn't even really a defense. You lost both your Phoenixes, but you get a couple picks. And that's ultimately what's important here. The Herculean Hoofs come up big at the end of Game 1. They're down effectively the entire time, but it doesn't matter. There's a 1 in the win column in this set for the Herculean Hoofs. A chance to end the set in Game 2 right after this. Herculean Hoofs start things off quickly here with a win in game number 1 over a very sturdy opponent in the Sturdy Artisans.
Stop.
And it is a late game turnaround that comes up big for the Herculean Hoofs. And Miff, the story of the early game was Baskin and can this Tiamat reign free, and that kind of continued to be a story throughout the game. I think Snoopy had a pretty big turnaround in this game as well. There was some uniqueness in that build. There was so much fighting we didn't even really get a chance to talk about it. By the end of that game, Snoopy had some big damage, some big multi-kills, and helped his team win.
I mean, the triple kill to end the game essentially is all I'm concerned about for a match like that. Any match that ends with one team dominating for the entirety of the game and then one turnaround team fight wins you the set, or the game rather, I mean, that's all you can really talk about. 12 minutes in, does this super matter? No, the Sturdy Artisans dominated after this. They grouped up, they took a Fire Giant, they took down Phoenixes multiple times. I think it all comes down to a play like this. This stealing of the Fire Giant was kind of an indicator, a heat check. Okay, the Herculean Hoofs are still able to fight in, but even despite that, lost out on their mid and left Phoenix yet again. This right here was the beginning of the end, though. Snoopy leaps in aggressive, able to put himself and his team in a position to look at the Fire Giant, and it's all history from there.
It is. He'll walk down Pagon, he'll walk down Ionic, and the rest of the team of the Herculean Hoofs. Yeah, they were on point. Some of those Ho-Yi bounces, you know, it's not super obvious in the team fights when we're watching it from our perspective, but it's always fun watching it from the third-person perspective, especially when Snoopy's playing the pick, because some of those ricochets can sneak in there and make big plays when otherwise we wouldn't have really noticed it. 6-5-4 for Snoopy, so far from the best KDA in the game. As a matter of fact, I think Griff at 9-2-8 has the better KDA out of the two hunters, but I think as far as impact goes, Snoopy was able to do a lot there in that game. 26,000 damage. Hard to compare that to the 42,000 of Griff, that being said.
Yeesh.
But Snoopy did put up a good game. 34,000 from Baskin as far as damage goes. Important for him to get that much to kind of counteract a lot of what that ROM was doing.
Yeah, Baskin essentially acts as a bridge throughout the early game, making sure that Snoopy was able to come up in a big way and steal Fire Giant, make triple kills happen inside of the late, but I don't know how you recover mentally from that, Dave. I mean, if you're the Sturdy Artisans in that position, you essentially do everything right. You strip Phoenixes, you take long fights, you take the slow play, you don't go for these risky ends, you group up in the Fire Giant. At the end of the day, despite playing incredibly well and with an advantage for nearly 30 minutes, they weren't quite able to close it out. When you're that close to finding a victory in a situation like this and it slips through your fingers like sand, I mean, that is taxing on the mental. So this could go one of two ways. It could be another highly contentious match between these two teams, or if they're the Sturdy Artisans are anything like me, they get blown out of the water here, because that is a hard game to deal with.
I thought you were going to give me this could go one of two ways. A win for the Herculean Hoofs or a win for the Sturdy Artisans.
I kind of said it like that.
Yeah, you kind of did, which is hard-hitting analysis from you there, Miff, as picks and pans for game number 2 kickoff. Here's the thing. I'm sad that against the Sturdy Artisans, ESET keeps getting banned, because it's so fun to watch ESET out of the jungle from a viewer perspective. But I guess I can totally understand that playing against it, especially when it's Sino that's playing it, is a whole different animal.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's necessarily all that good. I mean, Sino obviously very good at this pick, but anytime someone's got a comfort pick like ESET jungle, or maybe Johnny out there with the Apollo jungle, or some weird mid pick, something along the lines of like an Aphrodite mid, it makes it so unfun to play against that team because you're the only team running that. I mean, it's just Sino playing ESET jungle. So in like scrim environments, I mean, I've had the pleasure of being scrim partners with Sino in the past. We'd have to say, hey man, can you just practice the normal stuff so we can get ready for like an actual match, please? Like, can we get some real practice here? Like, I promise we'll let you have your one weird pick of the night, but after that, can you just like play Thor or something? And I'm sure that's kind of how the Artisans are feeling right now.
Are you excited if your jungler's playing Thor nowadays?
No. No.
I'm excited. Again, that's another one where, like, from a viewer perspective, I love it. I love it from a viewer perspective, but unfortunately, Thor not getting all of the love, at least not in his current state. We'll catch back up, though, with the picks and bans here for game number 2, Yamoja and Artio. So, healing, again, maybe the name of the game here for the Sturdy Artisans, but Tiamat this time for, this time for the Herculean Hoofs. Why not run it back with Baskin after a good performance in game 1?
34,000 damage, pretty hard to argue with. Cerberus as well, going to get locked in. And this one feels like, to me, a little bit earlier on in the draft, they're just trying to kind of like deter the Hell pick. Like,
right, stop,
hey,
please.
Don't do it. I'll steal your healing, I promise. And
And
it seems like it was enough this time around. Instead, Raijin going to get locked in for the Sturdy Artisans. That's a good deal of damage. Consistent ranged damage output from their mid laner should help out with just kind of finishing off some of these kills that may have got away from the Artisans last time around, but significant loss in survivability inside of these engagements. And I'm not talking about just the heal loss from Hell. I'm talking about the cleanse. That came out in such a big way multiple times throughout Game 1. Stygian Torments were essentially invalidated by this Hell pick. The movement speed afforded by her heal stance 3 made the kite so much easier to execute on as well.
Right.
This time around, the Artisans, I feel like they kind of have to dig in their heels and actually take that initial engagement, at least based on their top 3 picks so far.
The Sturdy Artisans will have to do it with a pick that is not Rom, who had 42,000 damage. In game number 1, won't be Cupid either. Instead, it will be Chernobog this time around for the Sturdy Artisans. So now we get a little global pressure added in, Miff. We had we had a lack of global pressure pretty much all today out of the Hunter role. It's been a lot of Izanami versus Rom, maybe
Heimdall.
a Hou-Yi, Heimdall. So now we're going to get our first look today at that rotational potential of Chernobog. But how interesting is this? Assume maybe Cerberus solo, though Cabrakan could also be solo, and you could say the same for support. Could be one or the other in both of those lanes.
Yeah, it's hard to say, man. I mean, even Cabrakan has potential to flex into the jungle if they want to put Camazotz in the solo lane.
Yeah.
Cerberus, as you already highlighted, can flex either support or solo. It's a very hard to lock down draft here. If I had my choice, I'm probably putting Camazotz inside a solo lane. Crazy
Really?
take. Cabrakan inside of the jungle, Cerberus support. But if I had to guess where it's actually going to land, probably going to be Camazotz jungle, Cabrakan solo.
Look, whenever there's a Cabrakan.
Cabrakan support, my bad.
Whenever there's a Cabrakan, I'm excited about it. So let's waste no further time. Game number 2 between the Herculean Hoofs and the Sturdy Artisans starting right now. And we'll get to answer a few questions, namely, will the Herculean Hoofs 2-0 the Sturdy Artisans, or will we have another 3-game set here today? It is Meerkat on the Cabrakan solo, Mast on the Camazotz in the jungle, and Gino playing the Cerberus support.
Okay, interesting. It's the one option that I didn't say, right?
Exactly.
Unfortunate situation for the analyst desk right now. Both of us victimized in our mutual agreement that it should have been that other way.
I was with you.
Yeah, we both co-signed that.
Yep.
Instead, though, Meerkat throwing a little wrench in the loop. It's going to be Cabrakan solo lane. I mean, it's still an incredibly good draft. It still works out generally the same way. I mean, the support is going to have a much easier time applying that heal steal out of the support as well, just because you're laning against Yamoja. You're not really having to deal too much with this Artio over there. I am curious to see how Meerkat can contend up against Artio with Cabrakan. Tremor being a channeled ability, easy to stun out in the bear form for Artio. Doesn't really have the same level of sustain steal that Cerberus has, so will be able to sustain a little bit thanks to Vampiric Shroud, but isn't matching the self-heal that Artio brings for herself. I think Relentless One this time around is in a position where he can very much bully this lane.
Yep. As we so often see Artio do. And so it's always a bit out of the ordinary when the Artio isn't able to bully at the same level as we know is expected. So the key of the game here for the Sturdy Artisans, maybe, let's keep Baskin from getting on a killing spree in the first few minutes of this game. Will probably feel good. That doesn't feel great. Pagon takes the stun, has to Thunder Crash and beads away. And so now there's a little bit more opportunity here, Miff, in the mid lane specifically for Baskin to push an advantage.
Yeah, not a great start to just surviving the Baskin onslaught, is it? Pagon losing out on the defensive tool very early on, and a very early look at how the soul lane's going to pan out. That's a lot of aggression already from a Relentless One. Meanwhile, on the other side, though, Herculean Hoofs, they've drafted pressure inside of the long lane. Izanami is going to establish it on her own, man. I mean, just being able to auto-attack every single minion with every single auto is pretty good, not to mince words.
No, and I like picking this pick when I don't really know how the matchup against me looks, because it's just, in my mind, it's just free wave clear. I can just sit there and auto-attack all the minions, and you get some wave pressure, and for my small hunter brain, that tends to work out for me more times than not. Lots of pressure being put in. Yeah, you got to be careful for that. Ionic's been pretty good with the Riptide so far throughout this set, and the stun as well is good onto Gino. Now Pagon without the beads, double jumped on, and Baskin gets first blood, but on the left side of the map, Griff will turn one around onto Snoopy. That was almost the exact same time that kill happened. And that is brutal for Griff that it doesn't end up being soon enough for first blood.
Yeah, that's a tough situation, man. I mean, Griff's got to feel so bad about that one. Pagon's like, I'm sorry, bro. Couldn't survive any longer. Already used my beads. They're still down for 70 seconds. Instead, though, it is Snoopy who does fall down. And considering the positioning of where it happened on the map, got to think that was Snoopy trying to get aggressive up against the Sturdy Artisans inside their tower and loses out on his life for it. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the map, what's Sino doing? He's stealing blue buff, maybe even stealing a speed buff as well. This is early game aggression from the Chaos team.
So, can we push this advantage on the left side of the map? Then becomes the question for Griff and Ionic. Another good Riptide. Mass taken low, but the body blocks from Gino are good right now, and I think that's enough. Mass dodges nearly everything, and in fact jumps back in. And what a turnaround. The Herculean Hoofs bait and switch, and Snoopy's picked up the kill.
Man, Mass was playing with fire. Luckily, does have some sustain on that leap, so jumps in, gets a little bit more HP, enough to survive it. Exactly one auto attack from Griff, and that's all he needs. Now that Snoopy's able to make the rotation back in. Meerkat, though, on the opposite side, might need some help himself. Level 4 to the 5, a relentless one and under duress inside of his tower. Going to be forced back to base. Doesn't have teleport as the relic selection. So, going to have to walk back to base on his feet. That's tough, man. He's going to miss out on that entire wave of experience.
Back from base on his feet.
Yeah, thank you.
If you had to walk imagine that. There's no recalling, and you have to walk all the way back.
Isn't that what assault is? I wouldn't know. I don't queue it.
No, you can't go back. Wait.
Well, you can walk.
I guess you can, and I've just never done it. No, because once you leave the fountain, you can't buy anything.
Oh, okay.
There's no reason to go back. I mean, I guess technically yes, because you can't recall, but there's no reason to recall. I guess is kind of my point. So this has been a good start here for the Herculean. Hoofs now have found some pressure, and specifically because you get that on the left side, right, where Snoopy was maybe just a bit behind Griff, but the fact that you're able to pick up that kill feels great. Gino's going to rotate in here as well. That's going to force Sino to use the ultimate, which does not feel great. And so now you see some of this pressure that Cerberus can put on Myth. Definitely no lack of damage on this pick, and it just feels like wherever Gino has gone, there's been this happening. You breathe some fire, you get a stun, and some pressure gets set up.
Man, that breath is just so ghastly, and Pagon eats the stun inside of his tower. Paralyzing spit immediately into the damage from Tiamat. Yeah, that breath is ghastly?
That breath is so ghastly. Yep.
Yeah, you like that one.
That is top shelf Mifflin right there. You're getting A1 Miff. Fresh off our break, back into competitive smite action, and I'm absolutely here for it. Hopefully we cast some SPL together this weekend.
I think so.
If you're coming up with one-liners like that, I mean, watch out. We got one of the best broadcasts around this weekend, to be sure. So the Herculean Hooves, Miff, unfortunately not able to get that kill onto Pagon, who heads on back to base, but Raijin's life has just not been made easy. Apparently no one's life is going to be, and no one is answered by wherever Gino goes right now. He walked towards Sino. Sino blinked away. And that's actually a pretty big loss because that's been so much of what Sino has looked to do on this this Vamana pick. Blink in, find the knock-up, and set up for the teammates.
Dave, you ever seen SpongeBob?
Yes.
You remember the episode where SpongeBob has, like, really bad breath?
Yes.
That's Gino right now, bro.
Okay.
His breath is so ghastly.
All right. You know, we were talking about Twilight earlier, and, like, you had me there, but I will not abide.
You don't like SpongeBob? You like Twilight more than SpongeBob? Is that what I'm hearing right now?
Damn, I really set myself up for that one. That's a misplay by me. No, I think I love how humorous you found your own bit there. I guess that tracks. No, you're right. You gotta clarify though. It's Cerberus and not Gino.
It's Gino.
Right? Okay, all right. I'll let you die on that hill, Miff, as the Herculean Hooves take the Scorpion down, and that'll open up the opportunity for a Gold Fury. What is with this Camazotz? I don't know why I haven't asked this yet. I mean, we've seen, Camazotz in half of the games today at least. Adapting played it a little bit earlier on, if I'm remembering correctly. Now Mast is going to pick it up here in this game. Is it the composition and the opponents just kind of feel right for this pick?
Look, aggro will tell you that Camazotz is just like not a great jungler because all he does is damage, but I'll tell you the exact opposite. Camazotz is a great jungler
because
he's got a ton of damage output just inside of the kit. He's got decent survivability. Bat out of hell, removing you from the playfield is just gnarly. I mean, Mast is literally not worried about anything right now. Relentless One could sink in another 200 damage into his chest, and if he gets remotely worried, he presses 4, and there's nothing this Artio can do about it. That's the strength of Camazotz. It's that safety net of the ultimate that allows him to play however he wants on the map. Do you want to dive a tower at level 5?
Yeah.
Do it. Just press 4 when you're on the way out, and you'll be just fine.
All right, so Mast has the opportunity to deal some damage, though maybe a bit one note in what Camazotz does. I deal damage. And Snoopy's going to have to deal a lot of damage. Does enough to turn around the 2v1, then he dashes away. Unreal. Snoopy in the 2v1 gets the kill, turns around, gets out. Bad to worse for the sturdy Artisans.
And that's not a 1v1 that you're super favored in, and it's not because of the God matchup. It's because Griff has Icavale, and Snoopy has Devourer's Gauntlets.
Oh,
I mean,
he did it again?
It's just the 1v1 item. Griff should be winning that every single time, but instead gets baited forward, tries to follow up on Sino, and loses his life for it.
Can Snoopy help out here is now the question. Gino is going to get jumped on. Stygian Torment will pull one beneath the tier 1 tower, and Ionic ends up getting the kill. So while you're not thrilled, Myth, that you have to give up Gino, the fact that it's Ionic who the kill lands on makes you feel okay.
And that was an expensive kill, too. Sino, Ionic, and Griff all use their ultimate as Pagon finds Mast in the jungle.
Mast trying to invade the speed buff. Will dodge out 1, 2, takes 3 willingly because Baskin is here as well. Bat out of hell. Swoops on through, and Baskin with the up-down gets the kill onto Pagon. Mast, can he pull magic out once more? No, he can't, and this time Sino will answer back a kill. If Mast had survived yet again, I don't know, I would have accused him of something, but this time Mast ends up going down. Baskin has to be a little worried here. Literally the last bit of mana gets used, but the stinky breath from Gino will help out Baskin in getting the kill.
Man, somebody get Gino a mint. This guy cannot keep getting away with this Ionic. No Omi available is going to try and chase out that kill, but maybe Relentless One's going to get credit for it.
Relentless One chasing down Baskin. The last bit of damage around the corner, and the sturdy Artisans finally have an answer for the T-Mat, who was on a killing spree yet again. But what's the cost? It's a killing spree for the Izanami instead.
Yeah, Snoopy and Baskin just trading that baton back and forth. Both 3-1. 100% kill participation if you add them both up. 6 total kills for the Herculean Hoofs. But gold and experience largely equalized across the board here. It's about 200 either way separating them. That's not a whole lot at this point. Gold Fury, though, has spawned up. That could be one place for either one of these teams to try and find some separation. Pyromancer also going to be coming up very shortly here as well. But what are you laughing about, Dave?
I'm not laughing.
But everybody heard it, Dave. You got a mic on.
I didn't laugh.
Oh, okay. I'm getting gaslit on an SCC
so
broadcast.
Gasly.
On a Thursday.
So gaslit. His breath is so... How did SpongeBob... All right, no, we can't get off track. How did SpongeBob solve that problem? I forget that episode.
I think he just learned to accept himself.
All right.
It's a good message. It's
Maybe that's true. No, you're right, but I can't... I feel like it's SpongeBob, so something sillier had to
Maybe
have
he,
happened.
brushed his teeth.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm thinking here. Griff, that's an aggressive attempt there. Griff is 2 levels down to Snoopy, who has Devourer's Gauntlet fully stacked and Odysseus's bow versus Ichabale and Charged Bow. But Griff feeling like the opportunity was there to ult out if need be. But look at the pressure that Snoopy's built up and what that allows. The Herculean Hooves now just grouping around this greater Scorpion. They'll pick it up themselves, despite Ionic's best efforts to steal it away.
Gold Fury maybe going to get looked at here by the Hoofs. Instead, though, Ionic just showing face around the Gold Fury itself should be just enough to stop them from looking towards it. And 11 minutes in, we are dead even, but it has not been for lack of trying from either one of these teams. 10 kills already across the board, but we are not really able to find any separation as of right now. Keep your eyes on Sino. He just hit a very phenomenal power spike. Toxic Blade picked up, already has the dominance, so once he gets into that Colossal Fury, he is going to be shredding whoever he makes contact with, barring maybe Baskin, who likely wins that DPS battle, at least from the initial. So it's going to be a very interesting scene to see which one of these teams feels more confident in the engagement. As of now, it's generally been the Herculean Hoofs. And when I say the Hoofs, I mean it's been Gino. This guy's just been doing whatever he wants on the map. But Relentless One already making a rotation over to the left-hand side, as has Meerkat, completely mirroring the the paths are the soul laners. It'll be very interesting to see how this one pans.
Eyes need to be on Snoopy. It's that 2-level lead that'll make a difference in this fight. Not great that Meerkat immediately gets locked down and taken down in the back of the fight. It's okay if you're able to at least get a kill on a Relentless One, which is not a guaranteed thing. And Relentless One will survive.
Mast.
But Mast is going to attempt to remedy that. Mast ends up getting the kill. And how about around the Gold Fury now? Sino trying to chase down Baskin, able to do so successfully. But Gino, in his ghastly breath, will burn Sino away once more. But Snoopy's still healthy enough to win this fight for his team. And look at the damage that Snoopy's providing. And Mast is capitalizing on.
Yo, Odysseus bow diff right there, man. I mean, that was so much damage, just chain lightning its way throughout the entirety of that team fight. You may have got Baskin, but you can't leave Snoopy alive, man. I know it's Baskin and the boys, but the boys are pretty good. Gold Fury burning pretty fast. Ionic gonna try his best to find the defense.
Ionic can maybe steal. Herculean Hoofs able to take the Gold Fury. I think you're right, Miff. Will be a couple more autos here from Snoopy or Gino or someone. Yep, there we go. Riptide. All right, Gino ends up getting the kill with the paralyzing spit. That spit is so paralyzing. Now, it only works for the ghastly breath when you say it. No, it was funny. Is that a worthwhile try?
I thought you were going to ask if that was a worthwhile bit. Yeah.
Both, on both.
Okay, so the bit is awesome. 10 out of 10. The try, maybe like a 7 out of 10 there from Ionic. I mean, it's pretty low odds that Yamoja is able to steal that away.
5 out of 7, the perfect score.
What?
I'm not teaching you that piece of internet history. That was a swing for the fences, and if you have not seen that, I'll show you after the cast.
All right, you promise?
I have no time to describe it to you now. So, what was the final answer?
Oh, yeah, it's a long shot steal, but I think that it's so low risk for Ionic. I mean, if your support dies in that situation, I mean, he's already back alive, a 1-level deficit between the supports, not the most massive deal. So considering how high the reward would have been, I agree with the decision from Ionic to try and steal away that gold.
Meerkat looked at now by Sino and Relentless One, and Meerkat's taken a lot of damage. Haven't heard much out of this Kabrakan yet this game, but Mast is here as well to make it a 3 versus 2. The wall at the end of this fight is massive. The Stygian Torment's big as well. Mast overjumps this one. Relentless One helped out now by Griff, who was ulted into this fight, but Meerkat may have bought enough time for the rest of his team to get these kills, but Griff on his rotation in early shifts the tides, and the Sturdy Artisans pick up a few kills.
They're simply outnumbered, are the Hoofs, and despite the most Stygian torment I've ever seen.
Torment is so
it was so Stygian, but it was not enough. Maybe kills Sino, but does not do much more than that. The Sturdy Artisans 4 strong on the right-hand side come out ahead 1 for 3 in that trade. So what is Snoopy going to do on the opposite? Try and take out a Tier 1 tower. Successful in doing so. Baskin going to try and replicate that performance in mid, and with nobody there on the defense, should think he should be able to take that one out pretty easily himself. Pyromancer still standing. Nobody from the Artisans headed that way, so it is just going to be Tier 1 tower on right, plus a couple of kills for the Artisans, traded up for 2 Tier 1 towers for the Hoofs, reflected in the slash lines, reflected in the gold. It still is an order side game.
And a lot of it revolves around Snoopy still. Snoopy was able to free farm on his own, take down a Tier 1 tower, and now about a 2.5 level lead over Griff at 3, 1, and 4. Devos, Odibo, plus chin size for Snoopy. And so it feels like, Miff, the things we were saying about Baskin, and probably still can say about Baskin at 3, 2, and 3 with Divine Ruin and Chronos Pendant, about how Baskin needed to be in the fights in Game 1 just because of how far ahead he is. Probably saying similar things about Snoopy here in this game. You've got to get this Izanami involved, which is tough, considering Griff has that global pressure, and Griff can be everywhere that Snoopy is.
Yeah, just so hard to take fights around Snoopy while this Gold Fury is dead. The only POIs on the map right now are Fire Giant and Pyromancer proper, but having stripped away this Tier 1 tower on the left-hand side, already ticking over to level 17, finishing off the kin size, I think that Snoopy is in a position now where he's allowed to rotate out of the lane. Dave, you got to explain it, man. You keep laughing into the mic. Everybody can hear it.
No, they can't, because I'm muted.
You were
I'm muted.
Oh, you muted?
Yeah.
They can hear it through my mic.
Probably. No, I can't. I'll return it, Nip. I'll return it at some point. Meerkat knocked up here, but look at the wall. It's actually trapped a couple members of the Sturdy Artisans in. Gino has gotten the first kill in this fight, but Meerkat is going to be the sacrifice. Griff being chased down by everyone. That's put Snoopy in a weird spot, but he'll backpedal, send some damage Shino's way, and Mast will grab that kill. The Izanami's full HP, and she has ultimate. then that means Snoopy's in a great spot to strike. Already 2 kills on the board. 1 more around the corner, but Baskin gets it instead. Deicide for the Hoofs. 16:45 in.
Man, you called it. Get Snoopy involved, win the team fight. That's exactly what happens. Snoopy rotates out and wins the team fight. Doesn't matter that Griff shows up. He's 3 levels down, doesn't have a kin size, doesn't match nearly as much damage as Snoopy is bringing at this point. Fire Giant going to go through all 5 members of the Hoofs here, and the gold lead is starting to balloon out of control in its own right. Pyromancer going to fall down right after this. Right tier 1 tower going to go down pretty quickly as well. We are approaching 6,000-7,000 gold in the lead for the Order team, and that all happens because 1, Snoopy gets involved, and 2, the Sturdy Artisans are legitimately just too far forward on the right-hand side of the map. They cannot stand that far up with the deficit that they are at.
The Herculean Hoofs, I mean, things were interesting there for a minute, Miff, right? And I think the last thing you say there is the key thing. It's the deficit that they are now at, Sturdy Artisans, where, I mean, you're kind of throwing caution to the wind. You know, you're a couple thousand gold down. Maybe you can win that fight. Now the doors are blown off this thing. The Herculean Hoofs, they've got Fire Giant on everyone. They've gotten a massive lead. And so now it's that deficit that the Artisans are now at that, I don't know, it's going to take a performance that the Hoofs, all appease you there, the Hoofs
Thank you.
put on in game 1, but the Artisans are going to have to do that here. Oni Fury started,
Hail Mary.
but it is going slowly as the Herculean Hoofs are able to rotate in. Ionic locked in place will throw up the River's Rebuke. That actually gets Ionic on out. Sino in the backline with Baskin, but look at this, Snoopy still full
That Fury
HP.
is so colossal.
1 Tycho drum finds its way into Snoopy, and Snoopy shrugs it off for a double kill. The backline dive is no good, and this ease is unstoppable.
Mass trying to finish off the last member here, Ionic, as the rest of the boys finish off Griff on the opposite side. That Screech was
we're out of
clean.
control.
Those bats were so vampiric, and that's all it's going to take.
Did I hear you
for the
say that
Herculean
Fury
Hoofs.
is so colossal in the middle of that fight?
Yeah, and that river was rebuking.
Myth, I am a staunch professional.
Uh-huh.
And I am here casting that team fight,
Yep.
casting my heart out.
Yeah.
And I hear that Fury is so colossal in my ear holes. How do you expect me?
Bro, that's one of the sickest ad-libs you've ever had. If you were a hip-hop artist, I would have charged you for me to say that behind your cast.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I'm kidding. I said fair enough just to get
so
you
I would
off,
stop.
right? Just to get you off. But no, but this game feels firmly out of control here. You have a 10K gold lead if you're the Herculean Hoofs. You've got left side Phoenix down. You've got 1 minute and 45 seconds left on Fire Giant and all 5 members of your team. It's going to require a throw and then another throw and then even one more throw maybe. Snoopy still has both of the actives, has not taken any damage despite Sino rounding the entire team here. And hey, when the game's going this way, why not step forward a little bit there? Gets rooted in place. Now we'll step forward to deal some extra damage to the Phoenix. Relentless one left alone, and who else but Snoopy gets the kill.
Man, Snoopy is coming up in such a big way for his team. 8-1-6.
Oh,
nice!
massive.
Riptide, though.
Is it enough from Ionic? Is that even where you want? Do you want them
No.
closer to you is the
No.
question. The Herculean Hoofs gladly take it. Ionic gets a nice setup for the Herculean Hoofs, and now all eyes on the Titan. That might have been enough
So
to
colossal.
make the Herculean Hoofs consider ending the game. Snoopy will end this game at least divine, and the Herculean Hoofs will delay off another 3-game set for the day. They'll take this 1 and 2.
The Hoofs were trying to leave, Dave. They didn't want to
no.
go into the Titan room, but instead, Ionic says, no, put an end to me and my team right now. 4-man Riptide. That's completely changed that fight, but maybe not for the better.
All right, so this is now a case study in if you're on a team and you like desperately want the game to end, and I'm not suggesting intentionally feeding. What are the best ultimates at forcing your team to like lose? Airdropping as Horus maybe, or like you
could
get
do that.
underneath them in the fountain and then
So here's like a really cool tip for all you fans at home now that you have brought up the airdrop on Horus. They can't actually tell where you're charging it. If you say you're going to airdrop your team into the Titan room, you can drop them into the enemy fountain. That's just facts.
disclaimer,
I'm simply saying what is
Disclaimer.
capable of being happening.
you should not do that.
No, of course.
Should not do that. Well, listen to Miff on the do not do that part, but definitely a neat fact about Horus, who wasn't even in this game. The Herculean Hooves, things are close in the first half, and then we have some fun down the back half of this game as the Herculean Hooves run away with it. In game number 2, we'll take a quick break, and then Miff and I will come back to end this day. Herculean Hoofs take this one 2-0 after a win in Game 1 that was definitely not convincing outside of the last few minutes for the Hoofs. They turn Game 1 around in their own base, and then they're able to convincingly win Game number 2 here. And so the Herculean Hoofs, with an F, are able to, I guess, pay their respects to the Sturdy Artisans.
Nice, I know that one.
Yeah, you got that one. And so the Herculean Hoofs, God, I can't break it, are able to take Game number 2 here, Miff. And this one, look, Snoopy came up big at the end of Game 1. Outside of one death early on in Game 2, Snoopy was big the entire time.
I mean, it felt like there was a concentrated effort from the Artisans. We're going to shut down Baskin. We're going to make sure Baskin isn't doing whatever he wants on the map. And
you got to do it.
They were successful in it, but they kind of left the raid boss alone to do whatever he wanted. And I'm not talking about Snoopy. I'm talking about not Gino. That man had atrocious breath. I am talking about Gino, but his name is not Gino. Do you see that torment, bro? I can only describe it as Stitching.
Say it again without breaking. The worst bit of all time. I agree. Gino ran things early on in the game, opened up the doors for Snoopy to do a lot of this, and it's running down the Sturdy Artisans by the end of the game. You probably noticed a trend in my team fight calls there by the end where I'm like, hey, Snoopy's full HP in the back of this fight still, and the fight is halfway over. There was just never a great answer. And actually, it's such a good point, Miff, because look at this fight here.
I made a good point.
Relentless One and Sino are all eyes on Baskin, and Snoopy was right there. And so Snoopy was able to turn that fight around. I mean, you have to kill Baskin, right? It's not a bad call. It's just you also then have to go deal with Snoopy.
Yeah, I think it's an argument of degrees. Which one do you need to kill more? And at that point of the game, I think it's got to be Snoopy, right? 9, 1, and 7 to close this one out. This Izanami was unstoppable, legitimately. Like
Divine.
Both in the game. Oh, is that Divine?
Divine is the 9.
What's unstoppable?
7, I think.
Wow, okay.
Well, I just get him every game.
So Snoopy... Snoopy was Divine at the end of that one, Dave. Clean play from Snoopy Evan Man Jones.
Miff, you are on something. I've been straight-faced.
You sure have, bud.
From minute one. Now, it's been a fun day to get back into competitive Smite action after we took a little bit of break after the Phase 2 playoff finals there in the SPL. Let's take a look back at the action that we've had so far here today, though. We had 1 EU set and then 2 North American sets. And Miff, the first couple of sets that we had, back and forth, competitive, Elysium and Goodnight Nick, they both went 3. Worth mentioning, played offline. Pandemonium also played a 3-game set. Won that one 2-1 against the Snake Hunters. And then our second broadcasted set of the day was our first North American set. That was Tiburones taking the win over the Winter Dogs 2-1. And then the Sturdy Artisans here, Miff, able to take the win, the Herculean Hoofs able to take the win over the Sturdy Artisans, and our only 2-0 set of the day. And standings-wise, remember this set was pretty important as well, where the Hoofs and the Artisans were both tied up. No longer. The Herculean Hoofs now in sole possession of second place.
Yeah, looking to try and match up against the Winter Dogs in that first place slot. I think they haven't matched up so far here, so once they do meet up again, that could be an opportunity for them to tie it up near the top.
What is an artisan?
What is an artisan?
That's just a guy who
that's like anyone who practices a trade is an artisan, like a privatized trade.
Got it. Well, these are Sturdy Artisans, and they're in third place here. At 4-3. Sleekness and Average Joe's still waiting to play that matchup, but actually that could be important. Sleekness versus Average Joe's, because if Sleekness wins, and this is no offense to Average Joe's, it's just a team that has not been able to find those wins very consistently. Sleekness would then jump up and tie for third place. So plenty of moving and shaking still to be done in the SCC. But that's it for the SCC portion of our day. Miff, we got a little SPL action to look forward to this. Yeah, you want to go cast some SPL
Let's run
right
that.
Now? Yeah, let's do it. No, starting tomorrow, unfortunately, Miff, at 1 p.m. Eastern time, the Atlantis Leviathans versus the Valhalla Valkyries will start off our weekend. And then our second set of the day will be Olympus Bolts up against the Oni Warriors. And what could be the match of the week, Miff, the Camelot Kings will take on the Atlantis Leviathans. And I would say a top 3 matchup, but standings are wiped. So we're all tied up at zeros right now.
So it is still top 3. You would be right to say so.
Yeah, but also not at the same time. Is that the one you're looking forward to, Camelot Kings and the Leviathans?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the only Warriors versus Tartarus Titans I think is also going to be a very good heat check for both the Titans and the Warriors. Warriors have been historically struggling here throughout Phase 8, or Season 8 rather, now inside to Phase 3. But I think that the Tartarus Titans, coming off of such a huge win at the playoffs, might go one of two ways, man. They could let their egos take hold of them a little bit. Maybe they don't play to their full strength and fall down a little bit early here. Maybe the Oni Warriors, given the opportunity to practice up, as they were eliminated pretty early on, could have something in their back pocket as well. So that's one I'm keeping my eyes on.
Yeah, remember, Phase 3 matters for Worlds. We'll have one round robin, we'll do a group stage, and then the Smite World Championship for Season 8. Feels like it's just around the corner. We got Phase 3 to get there, though. But that's it for our SCC broadcast today. So on behalf of myself, Mifflin, all the other casters, everyone back in production, thanks for watching. We'll see you for Phase 3 of the SPL tomorrow.
Peach it.